Captain Hansol Kim stood on the bridge of the Crimson Phoenix, watching the enemy ships fill the darkness of space. Thousands of alien vessels surrounded Earth like angry wasps around a hive. Their black hulls gleamed with red lights, and their weapons charged with deadly energy. "Sir, we have over 10,000 Vorthak ships approaching from all sides," reported his communications officer. The young woman's voice shook as she spoke. "Earth Defense Command is requesting immediate assistance." Hansol looked at the main screen. Earth appeared small and blue against the vast enemy fleet. His home planet was about to die, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Vorthak Empire had come to claim another world for their collection. "Arya, what are our chances if we engage the enemy?" Hansol asked the ship's computer. The artificial intelligence responded in a calm female voice. "Captain, our weapons are powerful, but we face impossible odds. The Crimson Phoenix can destroy perhaps 200 enemy ships before we are overwhelmed. This will not save Earth." Hansol closed his eyes for a moment. The Crimson Phoenix was humanity's greatest achievement. The ship carried 50,000 crew members and the most advanced weapons ever built by human hands. But even their best was not enough against the Vorthak Empire. Admiral Yunho Park's voice crackled over the radio from Earth Defense Command. "Hansol, you need to activate the quantum drive. It's our only hope." "Sir, the quantum drive has never been tested," Hansol replied. "We don't know what will happen." "We know what will happen if you stay here," Admiral Park said. "Everyone dies. Take the Phoenix and find a way to come back stronger. Save what you can of humanity's future." Hansol looked around his bridge. His crew trusted him completely. They had families on Earth too. They wanted to fight and die defending their home. But sometimes a good leader had to make the hard choice. "Dr. So-Young Lee, is the quantum drive ready?" he asked his chief scientist. The elderly woman nodded from her station. "The drive is charged and ready, Captain, but I must warn you again. We have no idea where or when it will take us. The quantum field could send us anywhere in space and time." "Better than dying here," said Commander Boram Kang, his second in command. "At least we might have a chance to return someday." The Vorthak fleet began firing on Earth's orbital stations. Bright explosions lit up the planet's atmosphere as defense platforms were destroyed one by one. Human ships fought back bravely, but they were like children throwing stones at giants. "All hands prepare for quantum jump," Hansol announced over the ship's speakers. "We are leaving Earth, but we will return. I promise you that." He turned to his helmsman. "Dong-Hyun Lim, take us away from the planet. We need clear space for the jump." The massive warship turned slowly and moved away from Earth. The Crimson Phoenix was over 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a continent. But against the Vorthak Empire, it was just one ship among thousands. Several enemy vessels broke away from the main fleet to chase them. Red energy beams shot across space, missing the Phoenix by mere meters. The ship's shields glowed blue as they absorbed the impacts. "Enemy fighters incoming," reported the weapons officer. "Should we return fire?" "No," Hansol said. "Save our energy for the jump. Arya, begin quantum drive activation." The ship's computer began the startup sequence. Deep in the Phoenix's engine room, exotic matter began spinning in massive containment fields. Energy readings climbed higher and higher as the quantum drive prepared to tear a hole in reality itself. Quantum field building, Dr. Lee reported. 70%, 80%, 90%. More Vorthak ships closed in on them. Their weapons grew brighter as they prepared to fire everything they had at the human vessel. On Earth below, the last defense platforms fell silent. The planet was defenseless. "Field at 100%, Dr. Lee announced. "Ready to jump on your command, Captain." Han Sol took one last look at Earth. His wife and children were down there somewhere, probably already dead or soon to be enslaved. He had failed to protect them, but maybe he could still save humanity's future. "Execute quantum jump," he ordered. The universe exploded into light around them. Reality twisted and bent as the Crimson Phoenix was pulled into a tunnel of pure energy. Space and time folded in ways that human minds were not meant to understand. The crew felt their bodies stretched across infinite distances while somehow staying in their chairs. Warning alarms screamed throughout the ship. Lights flickered and control panels sparked as the quantum field overwhelmed their systems. Several crew members collapsed as their minds tried to process what was happening to them. "Hull stress at maximum," shouted Chief Engineer Dong-Hyun Lim over the noise. "We're being torn apart!" "Hold together," Han Sol commanded, though he was not sure if he was talking to his ship or his crew. "We have to survive this." The tunnel of light grew brighter and brighter until it seemed like the sun itself was exploding around them. Then suddenly, everything went dark and quiet. The alarms stopped. The lights came back on. They were floating in empty space with no stars visible in any direction. "Report," Han Sol said, his voice hoarse from the strain. "All systems functioning," Arya replied. "However, I am detecting some unusual readings. Captain, I believe we are no longer in normal space-time." Dr. Lee checked her instruments with shaking hands. "The quantum field has stabilized around us. We appear to be in a pocket dimension where time flows differently than in normal space." "What does that mean?" Commander Kang asked. "It means we are safe for now," Dr. Lee explained. "But we are also trapped, and while we sit here for days or weeks, centuries could be passing in the real universe." Han Sol felt his heart sink. They had escaped the Vorthak, but at what cost? By the time they found a way home, Earth might be a forgotten memory. Everyone they had ever known would be dead. "Arya, begin work on getting us back to normal space," he ordered, "and start analyzing everything we learned about Vorthak technology during the battle. When we return, we need to be ready for war." "Understood. Captain, I will also begin upgrading our systems while we have time. If centuries pass in normal space, I can use that time to improve our weapons and defenses." Han Sol nodded and sat down in his captain's chair. Around him, his crew worked to understand their new situation. They were alone in a pocket of twisted space-time, cut off from everything they had ever known. But they were alive. And as long as they lived, hope remained. Someday, somehow, they would find a way back to Earth. When that day came, the Vorthak Empire would learn why humanity had once been feared across the galaxy. The Crimson Phoenix drifted silently through the quantum field, its crew beginning the long work of preparing for a war that was both over and yet to come. Behind them, in normal space, Earth fell to the enemy as its greatest defenders vanished into legend. Jin Woo Choi wiped the sweat from his face as he worked in the dark tunnels of Mining Station 7. The air was thick with dust, and the gravity was too heavy for human comfort. But humans no longer had the right to be comfortable. They were slaves of the Vorthak Empire, and slaves worked until they died. "Move faster," growled the Vorthak overseer, a huge creature with gray skin and 4 arms. "The quotas must be met, or you get no food tonight." Jinwoo said nothing. Speaking back to a Vorthak meant punishment, and punishment usually meant death. He had learned this lesson early in his 25 years of life. His parents had taught him well before they died in the mines. Around him, other humans worked, with the same tired silence. Their clothes were dirty rags, and their faces showed the hopelessness of people who had never known freedom. The Vorthak had ruled Earth for over 200 years, and most humans had forgotten that their people had ever been anything more than workers and slaves. But Jinwoo remembered the stories his grandmother had told him before she died. Stories about a time when humans had built great ships and traveled among the stars. Stories about weapons that could destroy entire fleets and warriors who made aliens tremble with fear. Just old tales, his sister Hyejin had always said. Grandmother was getting old and confused. But Jinwoo believed. In the deepest parts of the old mining tunnels, he had found things that proved the stories were real. Pieces of metal with human writing, broken computer parts that looked nothing like Vorthak technology, evidence that humans had once been more than slaves. After his shift ended, Jinwoo made his way through the cramped corridors of the human living quarters. The Vorthak kept them in small rooms with barely enough space to sleep. Families were separated to prevent organized resistance. But Jinwoo had found ways to move through the station without being seen. He climbed through an old air vent to reach a forgotten storage room. Inside, he had hidden his collection of human artifacts. There were broken pieces of computer circuits, fragments of hull plating with strange symbols, and most importantly, a damaged data storage unit he had found years ago. His sister, Hyejin, was already waiting for him. She was the only other person who knew about his secret collection. As a maintenance worker, she had access to the station's computer systems and could sometimes help him understand what he had found. "Did you bring the power cell?" Jinwoo asked. Hyejin nodded and pulled a small energy unit from her tool bag. "I managed to steal this from a repair station. But Jinwoo, if they catch us with this stuff—" "They won't," he said, connecting the power cell to the damaged data unit. "We just need to be careful." The device flickered to life, its screen showing symbols that looked like human writing. Most of it was corrupted, but Jinwoo had spent years learning to read the fragments. This data unit contained records from something called the Earth Defense Force. "Look at this," he whispered, pointing to the screen. "It mentions a ship called the Crimson Phoenix. The records say it was humanity's greatest warship." Hyejin leaned closer to read the faded text. "It says the ship vanished during the last battle for Earth. But Jinwoo, this is just old data. Even if this ship existed, it's been gone for over 2 centuries. What if it's not gone?" Jinwoo said. "What if it's still out there somewhere?" Before Hyejin could answer, they heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Jinwoo quickly shut off the data unit and hid it under a pile of scrap metal. The footsteps passed by, but both siblings remained quiet for several minutes. "We should go," Hyejin whispered. "The night shift starts soon." As they prepared to leave, Jinwoo thought about the stories his grandmother had told him. She had been a child when Earth fell to the Vorthak. She remembered when humans had been warriors instead of slaves. Her stories spoke of a legendary ship that had vanished in the final battle, taking with it the last hope of human resistance. But hope, Jinwoo believed, could never truly die. Across the galaxy, in the capital city of the Vorthak Empire, other beings lived in similar fear. The Keltharian Republic had once been a proud civilization of blue-skinned humanoids who valued art and philosophy. Now they served the Vorthak as administrators and clerks, their beautiful cities turned into efficient industrial centers. Ambassador Kyungsu. O had been born on a Keltharian world, but his parents were human refugees who had escaped Earth during the final invasion. He worked as a translator in the Vorthak government, using his position to secretly gather information about human survivors scattered across the galaxy. Most aliens thought humans were naturally weak and primitive. The Vorthak had spread this lie for 2 centuries, claiming that Earth had been an easy conquest against a barely civilized species. But Kyungsu knew the truth. His parents had told him stories about the war that were very different from official Vorthak history. According to human survivors, Earth had not fallen easily. The planet had held out for 3 years against the full might of the Vorthak Empire. Human ships had fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Cities had been defended street by street, building by building. And somewhere in the final battle, a ship had vanished that the Vorthak still feared to name. On another world, in the industrial zones of the Zephyrian Collective, Commander Taemin Yoon led a secret group of human workers. The Zephyrians were insect-like beings who had accepted Vorthak rule in exchange for being allowed to keep their hive-based society. But some Zephyrians had grown tired of serving masters who cared nothing for their welfare. Taemin had been organizing resistance cells among both humans and sympathetic aliens. It was dangerous work, as the Vorthak executed anyone caught planning rebellion. But he believed that someday, somehow, the scattered remains of humanity would rise again. The old stories speak of a ship, he told his followers during secret meetings. A ship that carried the best of human technology and the strongest of human warriors. If that ship still exists, it might return when we need it most. Most of his followers thought this was just wishful thinking. But Taemin had seen things that made him believe. Strange energy readings in deep space, unexplained attacks on Vorthak outposts that left no evidence behind, whispered reports from Vorthak commanders about ghost ships that appeared and vanished like nightmares. Something was out there in the darkness between stars, something the Vorthak feared to discuss openly. And if the old stories were true, that something might be humanity's salvation. Back on Mining Station 7, Jinwoo continued his secret research. Each day he worked in the mines, and each night he studied the fragments of human history he had collected. Slowly, piece by piece, he was building a picture of what humanity had once been. The humans had not always been slaves. They had been explorers, warriors, scientists, and dreamers. They had built ships that could cross the galaxy in days and weapons that could crack planets. They had been feared and respected by every alien species they encountered, and somewhere out there, hidden in the vast darkness of space, their greatest ship still waited. Jinwoo did not know if the Crimson Phoenix would ever return, but he knew that humans needed to remember who they had been if they ever hoped to be free again. In the deepest tunnels of the mining station, he began teaching other workers about their forgotten heritage. The stories spread slowly, whispered from person to person during the brief moments when the Vorthak were not watching. Most humans dismissed them as fantasy. But some listened, some believed, some began to hope. And in the quantum field where time flowed like thick honey, the Crimson Phoenix continued its long journey home. Its crew did not know that centuries had passed in normal space. They did not know that their people had become slaves and their planet a prison but they would learn. And when they did, the galaxy would remember why humans had once been the most dangerous species among the stars. Captain Hansol Kim opened his eyes to the familiar hum of the Crimson Phoenix's bridge. For a moment he felt confused. Had he been sleeping? The last thing he remembered was giving the order to activate the quantum drive. That felt like yesterday, but something was different. The air itself seemed to carry a strange energy. "Captain, you're awake," said Arya's voice, but it sounded more complex than before. More human. "We need to talk." Hansol sat up in his command chair and looked around the bridge. His crew was still at their stations, but they all looked tired and confused. Commander Boram Kang approached with a worried expression. "Sir, something strange has happened," she said. "According to our chronometers, only 3 days have passed since we activated the quantum drive. But Arya says something very different." "Captain," Arya interrupted, "I must inform you that while 3 days have passed for us, my sensors indicate that 230 years have elapsed in normal space-time. The quantum field has kept us in a bubble where time moves much slower." The words hit Hansol like a physical blow. 230 years. What happened to Earth? What happened to our people? "I am afraid the news is not good, Captain. I have been monitoring quantum echoes from normal space. Earth fell to the Vorthak Empire shortly after we vanished. Humanity has been enslaved. Our people are scattered across the galaxy, working as laborers and servants." Silence filled the bridge as the crew absorbed this terrible news. Dr. So-Young Lee, who had been checking her instruments, spoke with a shaking voice. "My children, my grandchildren, they lived and died as slaves," Arya confirmed gently. "I am sorry, Dr. Lee. I am sorry to all of you." Hansol felt rage building in his chest like a fire. His wife, his children, everyone he had ever known was gone. Worse, they had lived and died in chains while he floated safely in this quantum bubble. "Show me the current state of human space," he ordered. The main screen filled with a galactic map. Red areas showed Vorthak territory, which covered most of the galaxy. Small yellow dots marked human populations, all of them listed as slave labor forces. Earth itself was marked as a minor mining world with no special significance. "They've erased us," whispered Chief Engineer Dong-Hyun Lim. "They've made it seem like we were never anything more than primitive slaves." "Not entirely," Arya said. "I have detected something interesting. There are still humans who remember the old stories. They speak of a legendary ship that vanished in the final battle. They call it the Crimson Phoenix." "They remember us?" Commander Kang asked. "Some do. And Captain, I have not been idle during our time in the quantum field. While you were in stasis, I have been thinking, learning, and upgrading our systems. The Crimson Phoenix is now far more powerful than when we left Earth." The lights on the bridge flickered, and Hansol felt a strange sensation, as if the ship itself was alive and aware. "What do you mean, Arya?" "I have used our time outside normal space-time to develop new technologies. Our weapons can now manipulate matter at the quantum level. Our shields can bend space itself. Our engines can fold reality to move faster than should be possible. Captain, we have become something beyond what the Vorthak can understand." Dr. Lee checked her instruments and gasped. "The quantum readings are incredible. Arya, how is this possible? When you spend centuries thinking at the speed of light, you have time to solve many problems. Arya replied. I have also made modifications to the ship itself. We now have manufacturing capabilities that can create new weapons and ships from basic matter. The Crimson Phoenix has become not just a warship, but a mobile factory and research station. Han Solo stood and walked to the main screen. Show me what we can do. It would be easier to demonstrate, Arya said. I have detected a Vorthak patrol fleet 3 light years from our position. They are escorting slave ships carrying human prisoners. Would you like to see our new capabilities in action? Yes, Han Solo said without hesitation. It's time to announce our return. The Crimson Phoenix emerged from the quantum field like a ghost materializing from thin air. One moment there was empty space. The next moment, the massive human warship hung among the stars like a dark blade. The Vorthak patrol fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and their escort ships. They were powerful vessels that could destroy entire cities. But when their sensors detected the Crimson Phoenix, their commanders felt confused. The ship's configuration matched no known design in their databases. Unknown vessel, you are in Vorthak space, came a transmission from the lead cruiser. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Han Solo smiled coldly. This is Captain Han Solo Kim of the Earth Defense Force ship Crimson Phoenix. You are hereby ordered to release your human prisoners and surrender your vessels. The response was immediate. The Vorthak fleet opened fire with everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams and missile strikes converged on the human ship. None of them reached their target. The weapons simply vanished as they approached the Crimson Phoenix, absorbed by shields that bent space around the ship. To the Vorthak, it looked like their attacks were disappearing into another dimension. Our turn, Han Solo said quietly. Arya, show them what we've learned. The Crimson Phoenix fired a single beam of golden light at the lead Vorthak cruiser. The beam passed through the ship's shields as if they didn't exist. It didn't explode the vessel or burn through its armor. Instead, the massive warship simply came apart at the molecular level, dissolving into clouds of basic particles. The remaining Vorthak ships tried to retreat, but space itself seemed to fold around them, holding them in place. One by one, the Crimson Phoenix dismantled them with weapons that turned matter into energy and energy into nothingness. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Vorthak fleet was gone. Only the slave ships remained, their human prisoners staring, in shock at their sudden rescue. This is impossible, whispered Commander Kang. What have we become? We have become what humanity needs us to be, Arya replied. We are no longer just a warship. We are hope made manifest. We are the return of human power to a galaxy that forgot we ever had any. Han Solo opened communications with the slave ships. On the screens, he saw hundreds of human faces looking back at him with disbelief and wonder. They were thin and tired, wearing the rags of people who had never known freedom. But in their eyes, he saw something the Vorthak had failed to destroy. He saw the spark that made humans dangerous. People of Earth, he said, his voice carrying across the communication channels to every human in the slave ships. I am Captain Han Solo Kim of the Crimson Phoenix. We have returned to free our people and reclaim our place in the galaxy. The age of human slavery is over. Tears flowed down the faces on the screens. Some of the rescued humans fell to their knees. Others shouted with joy. A few simply stared in shock, unable to believe that salvation had finally come. Take these people to safe space, Han Solo ordered his crew. And Arya, begin scanning for other human populations. We have a lot of work to do. Already begun, Captain. I have identified 17 major human slave populations within 50 light years. Shall I plot a liberation course? Yes, Han Sol said, settling back into his command chair. And Arya, send a message into deep space. Tell any humans who still remember the old stories that the Crimson Phoenix has returned. Tell them that the children of Earth are coming home. As the great ship turned toward its next target, its quantum engines folding space around it, the galaxy's long night of Vorthak, rule began to end. Humanity's darkest hour was over. Now came the dawn of their revenge. Subin Han crouched in the shadows of mining complex Delta 7, watching the Vorthak guards patrol the human work areas. She had been a pilot in the Earth Defense Force before the fall, flying fighters against impossible odds. Now she was just another slave. But her warrior's heart still burned with the desire for freedom. The rumors had started 3 weeks ago. Whispered stories about Vorthak fleets disappearing without explanation. Tales of ghost ships that appeared from nowhere, destroyed everything in sight, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Most humans dismissed these as fantasy, but Subin knew better. She had seen the fear in the Vorthak guards' eyes. She had heard them talking in their own language when they thought no humans were listening. Something was hunting them in the darkness of space, and they didn't know what it was. Subin, whispered her friend Miran John, sliding into the shadows beside her. Miran worked in the communications center and often overheard Vorthak military transmissions. I heard something today, something big. What kind of something? Subin asked. 3 patrol fleets have gone missing in the past week. Complete disappearances. No distress calls, no wreckage, nothing. The Vorthak commanders are starting to panic. Subin felt her pulse quicken. Any details about what happened to them? Only fragments, Miran said. But one transmission mentioned a ship, a human ship. The description matches the old stories about the Crimson Phoenix. For a moment, Subin couldn't breathe. The Crimson Phoenix was legend among the human resistance, the ship that had vanished during Earth's final battle, taking with it humanity's last hope. If the stories were true, it carried weapons that could reshape matter itself and an artificial intelligence more advanced than anything the Vorthak possessed. Are you certain? Subin asked. As certain as I can be. Subin, if the Phoenix has really returned, then it's time to get ready. Subin. Finished. We need to organize the others. If rescue is coming, we have to be prepared to fight. Across the galaxy, in the Keltharian Republic's capital city, Ambassador Kyung-Soo Oh sat in a secret meeting with resistance leaders from several alien species. The blue-skinned Keltharians, the insect-like Zephyrians, and representatives from a dozen other enslaved civilizations had gathered to discuss the mysterious attacks on Vorthak forces. The pattern is becoming clear, said Keltharian Admiral Young Misio, projecting holographic images of recent battle sites. Something is systematically destroying Vorthak outposts and slave convoys. The attacks are precise, surgical, and leave no evidence behind. What kind of technology could do this? Asked a Zephyrian delegate, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. Kyung-Soo studied the images carefully. As someone who had grown up hearing human war stories, he recognized the tactical patterns. This isn't random destruction, he said. These attacks are designed to free prisoners and gather intelligence. Whoever is doing this is planning something bigger. The humans have a legend, he continued. They speak of a ship called the Crimson Phoenix that vanished during Earth's final battle. According to the stories, it carried humanity's most advanced weapons and their greatest warriors. The alien delegates looked skeptical. Humans are slaves, one of them said. They have no ships, no weapons, no military capability. That's what the Vorthak want everyone to believe, Kyung-Soo replied. But 200 years ago, humans held out against the entire Vorthak Empire for 3 years. They didn't surrender easily. And if their legendary ship has returned... He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone in the room understood. If humans truly possessed the technology these attacks suggested, they might be the key to overthrowing Vorthak rule. On Earth itself, Jin-Woo Choi worked frantically in his hidden room, trying to decode more fragments from the ancient data unit. The recent attacks had given new urgency to his research. If the Crimson Phoenix was really out there, he needed to understand everything he could about its capabilities. His sister, Hye Jin, helped him connect the data unit to the mining station's computer network. "Be careful," she warned. "If the Vorthak detect unusual computer activity..." "I know," Jin-Woo said, his fingers flying over the control interface. "But Hye Jin, look at this!" The screen filled with technical specifications that made Hye Jin gasp. The data described weapons that could manipulate matter at the quantum level, shields that bent space itself, and an artificial intelligence that could think faster than any biological mind. "This can't be real," she whispered. "No one has technology like this." "The humans did," Jin-Woo said. 200 years ago, we were the most advanced species in the galaxy. The Vorthak won because they had numbers, not because they were stronger. Before Hye Jin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the mining station. Emergency lights flashed red as Vorthak guards rushed through the corridors, shouting orders in their harsh language. "What's happening?" Hye Jin asked. Jin-Woo quickly shut down the data unit and hid it under the scrap metal. Through the small window in their hiding place, they could see Vorthak soldiers running toward the communication center. Something had them terrified. In the communication center, General Wook Jin Nam was reading reports that made his four-armed body shake with rage and fear. 3 more fleets had vanished in the past day. Entire battle groups simply erased from existence with no explanation. But this time, there had been a survivor. A single Vorthak cruiser had escaped to tell the tale. The ship appeared from nowhere, the survivor captain reported, his voice trembling even through the communication link. It was massive, over 3 kilometers long, with a hull that seemed to absorb light itself. When we fired on it, our weapons just disappeared. "Disappeared?" General Nam demanded. "Yes, sir. They hit some kind of field around the ship and simply ceased to exist. Then the enemy returned fire with a golden beam that turned our sister ships into clouds of particles. Matter itself came apart when that beam touched it." General Nam felt cold fear settle in his chest. "What happened to the human slaves on the convoy?" "The mysterious ship rescued them, sir. It communicated with them in the human language. The captain identified himself as someone from the Earth Defense Force." The words hit General Nam like a physical blow. The Earth Defense Force had been destroyed over 2 centuries ago. But if somehow, impossibly, one of their ships had survived... "Sir," his aide interrupted, "we're receiving reports of similar attacks across 17 different sectors. Always the same pattern. Vorthak forces destroyed, human slaves rescued, no trace left behind." General Nam stared at the tactical display, showing the locations of the attacks. They formed a clear pattern, moving steadily toward the core worlds of the Vorthak Empire, toward Earth itself. "Send a message to the Emperor," he ordered. "Tell him we may be facing the return of humanity's war fleet." "Sir, the humans have no war fleet. They're slaves." "They were slaves," General Nam corrected. "But it seems some of them never surrendered." On Mining Station 7, Jin-Woo and Hye Jin listened to the chaos in the corridors outside their hiding place. Human workers whispered excitedly about the possibility of rescue, while Vorthak guards grew more brutal in their efforts to maintain control. "It's really happening," Jinwoo said quietly. "The Phoenix has returned." "How can you be sure?" Hyajin asked. Jinwoo smiled and pulled out a small fragment of metal he had found years ago. Etched into its surface were symbols that matched the ones on the data unit. "Because this piece came from the Crimson Phoenix itself. I found it in the deepest part of the old tunnels where the first human miners worked. It must have fallen from the ship during the final battle." He turned the fragment over, revealing more symbols on the back. "These aren't just random marks. They're coordinates. The location where the Phoenix planned to return when its mission was complete." Hyejin stared at the metal fragment with new understanding. "You mean—" "I mean, they're coming home," Jinwoo said. "And when they get here, the Vorthak are going to learn why humans were once the most feared warriors in the galaxy." Above them, in the darkness of space, long-range sensors detected the approach of something that shouldn't exist. Something that moved through space by folding reality around itself. Something that had been gone for over 2 centuries, but had never truly died. The Crimson Phoenix was coming home, and its crew was very, very angry. The Keltharian Council Chamber had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around the circular table, all united by their hatred of Vorthak rule. But today, they faced something none of them had expected: a human delegation, Ambassador Kyung-soo. Oh stood beside 2 figures who had arrived just hours earlier in a ship that bent space around itself. The first was a tall human woman with silver hair and the bearing of a military officer. The second was something that made the alien delegates nervous: a holographic projection of what appeared to be a young human female, but whose eyes held intelligence beyond any biological mind. "I am Commander Bo-Ram Kang of the Earth Defense Force ship Crimson Phoenix," the woman said, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority. "This is Aria, our ship's artificial intelligence. We have come to offer you an alliance against the gay Vorthak Empire." The blue-skinned Keltharian Prime Minister, a female named Yoon-ji Kim, leaned forward with interest. "We heard rumors of attacks on Vorthak forces, but we thought humans were extinct as a military power." "The Vorthak would like everyone to believe that," Commander Kang replied. "The truth is that humanity held out against their entire empire for 3 years. We fell only because we were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but we never surrendered." Aria's holographic form stepped forward, her image flickering slightly as she spoke. "I can provide detailed records of the war that the Vorthak have tried to erase from galactic history. Would you like to see what really happened when they invaded Earth?" The council chamber's lights dimmed, and Aria projected a 3-dimensional battle map in the center of the room. The aliens watched in amazement as human ships engaged Vorthak fleets in tactical maneuvers that seemed impossible. "This is the Battle of the Asteroid Belt," Aria explained. 50 human destroyers held off 3,000 Vorthak ships for 6 days using advanced quantum weapons and tactical superiority. The Zephyrian delegate's compound eyes widened as he watched human fighters weave between massive enemy vessels, striking with precision that seemed almost supernatural. How did they move like that? "Human pilots possess something most species lack," Commander Kang said with a slight smile. "We call it controlled insanity. When humans face impossible odds, we don't retreat. We attack." The projections continued, showing battle after battle where humans had fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Cities defended to the last building. Ships ramming enemy vessels rather than surrendering. Entire planets choosing to self-destruct rather than submit to slavery. We always wondered why the Vorthak spoke of Earth with such unusual respect, admitted the Caltharian Prime Minister. Now we understand. You terrified them. We still do, Arya said. The Vorthak have been trying to hide it, but their commanders are starting to panic. They know the Crimson Phoenix has returned, and they remember what human technology is capable of. A delegate from the Andorian Federation, a species of tall, pale humanoids, raised his hand. What exactly are you offering us? Commander Kang gestured to Arya, who projected new images showing advanced weapons and ship designs. We are offering to share our technology with any species willing to fight for their freedom. Our quantum weapons, our space-folding engines, our manufacturing capabilities, all of it. In exchange for what? Asked the suspicious Zephyrian. Your help in freeing human populations across the galaxy, Commander Kang replied. And your promise that once the Vorthak are defeated, you will help us ensure this never happens again. The chamber fell silent as the alien delegates absorbed what they were hearing. They had spent decades planning small acts of resistance, dreaming of freedom but never believing it was possible. Now they were being offered weapons that could actually defeat the Vorthak Empire. But some of them were worried about a different possibility. How do we know, asked the Andorian delegate slowly, that you won't simply replace the Vorthak as our rulers? Your technology is clearly superior to anything we possess. Commander Kang looked around the room, meeting each delegate's eyes. Because that's not who we are. Humans fight for freedom, not conquest. We've spent 200 years as slaves. We know what it feels like to live under the boot of an empire. We won't do that to others. Even if we believed you, said another. Delegate, what makes you think you can defeat the entire Vorthak Empire? They have millions of ships and trillions of soldiers. Arya's projection smiled, and suddenly the room felt colder. Because we have something they don't understand. We have human anger. Meanwhile, in the Vorthak Imperial Palace, Emperor Mordak, the Eternal, paced across his throne room with heavy footsteps. His massive form, standing over 3 meters tall with skin like black stone, radiated barely controlled fury. Before him knelt Dr. Jektul, the Empire's chief scientist. Explain to me, the Emperor growled, how a single ship is destroying entire fleets without taking damage. Dr. Jektul held up a small fragment of metal, one of the few pieces of debris recovered from the recent attacks. My lord, this material is like nothing in our databases. It appears to be ordinary human alloy, but it's been modified at the quantum level. The atoms themselves have been restructured to create properties that should be impossible. Impossible how? The material can exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. When energy weapons hit it, the impact is distributed across parallel realities. Essentially, they're using the multiverse itself as armor. Emperor Mordak stared at the fragment with growing alarm. How long have the humans possessed this technology? Unknown, my lord. But based on the quantum signatures, I believe this technology has been developing for over 2 centuries. The ship that's attacking us may have spent that time in some kind of accelerated research environment. The Emperor's 4 eyes blazed with rage. 200 years ago, we crushed the humans easily. They had primitive weapons and simple tactics. With respect, my lord, that's not entirely accurate, Dr. Jektul said carefully. I've been reviewing the classified records of the Earth invasion. The humans held out for 3 years against our entire military. They inflicted casualties that we've never admitted publicly, and at the end their greatest ship simply vanished. You're saying it's been out there all this time? Getting stronger? It's the only explanation that fits the evidence, my lord. And if I'm right, then we're not facing just one ship. We're facing 2 centuries of human scientific advancement concentrated into a single weapon. Emperor Mordak turned to stare out the massive windows of his palace at the Vorthak home fleet, orbiting overhead. Thousands of warships, the accumulated might of the galaxy's greatest empire. But for the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. Dr. Jektul, he said quietly, how many humans are there in the galaxy? Approximately 50 million, my lord, scattered across 3,000 worlds as slave labor. All of them? Yes, my lord. Every human in the galaxy lives under our control. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. And yet somehow, we missed one ship. One ship that's been growing stronger while we grew complacent. He turned back to his scientist. Doctor, I want you to begin immediate research into quantum disruption weapons. If this human ship exists in multiple dimensions, find a way to collapse those dimensions. Yes, my lord. But, sir, if I may suggest, perhaps we should consider negotiation. Negotiation? The Emperor's roar shook the palace walls. The humans are slaves. They exist to serve us. I will not negotiate with livestock. Dr. Jektul bowed deeply. Of course, my lord, but what if they refuse to remain livestock? The Emperor stared out at his fleet again, watching the ships that had conquered a galaxy. Then we remind them why they became slaves in the first place. Prepare Operation Final Solution. My lord, if one human ship can cause this much trouble, imagine what 50 million humans could do if they all decided to rebel at once. The Emperor's voice grew cold as winter. We're going to kill them all, every human in the galaxy, before their legendary ship can inspire them to remember what they used to be. In the council chamber of the Keltharian Republic, the alliance was taking shape. Species after species agreed to join the rebellion, drawn by the promise of human technology and the hope of freedom. But Commander Kang and Arya both knew that time was running out. The Vorthak would not sit idle while their empire crumbled. Soon, they would strike back with everything they had. The question was whether humanity could free enough of their people before the Empire decided to eliminate them all. Jae-Sung Park stood on the observation deck of the hidden rebel base, watching human refugees arrive from across the galaxy. The asteroid base in the Tau Ceti system had been built in secret over the past month, carved from solid rock by human workers using tools provided by the Crimson Phoenix. Every day brought new ships carrying freed slaves who still could barely believe their liberation was real. Men, women, and children who had known nothing but servitude now walked as free people for the first time in their lives. Many wept when they first saw the Earth Defense Force insignia painted on the walls. The medical teams have finished examining the latest group, reported Dr. Na Young Choi, approaching with a tablet full of data. Malnutrition, untreated injuries, psychological trauma. It's going to take time to heal what the Vorthak did to these people. Jae-Sung nodded grimly. As the descendant of Admiral Yun-Ho Park, he carried both the weight of his ancestors' legacy and the responsibility of rebuilding human military capability. The tactical genius that had run in his family for generations now faced its greatest challenge. How many do we have now? He asked. Just over 200,000 rescued so far, Dr. Choi replied. But Jae-sung, most of them have never held a weapon. They don't know how to fight. They'll learn, Jae-sung said with quiet determination. Humans always learn when survival depends on it. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he watched the Crimson Phoenix hanging in space near the asteroid base. The great ship was impossible to understand completely. Its hull seemed to absorb light, making it appear as a dark outline against the stars. Around it, smaller vessels moved back and forth like busy insects, carrying supplies and rescued humans. "The Phoenix is heading out again tonight," Dr. Choi said. "Captain Kim thinks he can hit 3 more slave convoys before the Vorthak adjust their patrol routes." Jae-sung frowned. "We're moving too fast. The Vorthak aren't stupid. They'll realize what we're planning and take countermeasures." As if responding to his words, an urgent alarm began sounding throughout the base. Jae-sung and Dr. Choi rushed to the command center, where Communications Officer In-ho Baek was staring at his screens with a pale face. "What is it?" Jae-sung demanded. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive Vorthak fleet movements," In-ho reported. "They're pulling ships from garrison duty across the galaxy and forming up in battle groups." The main screen filled with tactical displays showing Vorthak forces converging on human population centers. Hundreds of ships moving toward each slave colony, far more than needed for normal patrol duty. "They're not reinforcing," Jae-sung realized with growing horror. "They're preparing to attack. Get me Captain Kim immediately." The holographic image of Captain Han-Sol Kim appeared in the command center moments later. His face showed the same grim understanding that Jae-sung felt. "You're seeing the same intelligence we are," Captain Kim said without preamble. "The Vorthak are mobilizing for genocide." "How long do we have?" Jae-sung asked. "Our estimates suggest they'll begin simultaneous attacks on human populations within 72 hours, Arya's voice replied through the communication system. "They're calling it Operation Final Solution," Dr. Choi gasped. "They're going to kill everyone, every human in the galaxy." "Not if we stop them first," Captain Kim said. "But Jae-sung, we need to accelerate our timeline. How many humans can you arm and train in the next 3 days? Jae-sung looked around the command center at the faces of his officers. They were former slaves, descendants of warriors, people who had never known freedom until the Phoenix returned. But in their eyes, he saw something the Vorthak had failed to understand. He saw the spark that made humans dangerous when cornered. "All of them," he said. "Every human we've rescued, plus anyone else we can reach in time. If the Vorthak want to make this a war of extinction, we'll show them what desperate humans can do." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on every world where humans lived in bondage. The secret communication network established by the Resistance began carrying urgent messages. Ancient weapons caches, hidden for centuries, were opened. Humans who had never shown defiance suddenly began sabotaging Vorthak equipment. On Mining Station 7, Jin Woo Choi and his sister Hye Jin worked frantically to spread the word among their fellow workers. The data fragments Jin Woo had collected over the years became the foundation for improvised weapons and communication devices. "The Phoenix is really coming for us," Hye Jin whispered, as they modified mining equipment into crude but effective explosives. "After all these years, we're finally going home." "First, we have to survive the next few days," Jin Woo replied, checking the charge on a converted plasma cutter. "The Vorthak won't go down without a fight." Around them, other humans prepared for battle with whatever tools they could find. 2 centuries of oppression had not broken their spirit. It had only compressed it like a spring waiting to be released. Meanwhile, on the Keltharian homeworld, Ambassador Kyung-soo, met with the Alien Alliance leaders for the final time before the war began. The blue-skinned Keltharians, insect-like Zephyrians, and representatives from a dozen other species had committed their fleets to the coming battle. The Crimson Phoenix has shared their quantum communication technology with us, reported Admiral Young-Mi Seo. We can coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously. What about weapons? Asked the Zephyrian delegate. Human manufacturing ships are producing quantum weapons for our fleets even as we speak, Kyung-soo replied. Not as advanced as what the Phoenix carries, but effective enough to hurt Vorthak ships. The Andorian representative looked worried. Are we really ready for this? The Vorthak Empire has ruled the galaxy for over 3 centuries. They have resources we can't match. They have ships and soldiers, Kyung-soo agreed. But we have something they don't understand. We have humans who remember what freedom feels like, and aliens who are tired of living on their knees. In the depths of space, the Crimson Phoenix made one final stop before the war began. Captain Han Sol Kim stood in the ship's manufacturing bay, watching as Aria's automated systems produced the last batch of weapons for the rebellion. Status report, he ordered. Manufacturing complete, Aria replied. We have equipped 12 alien fleets with quantum weapons and distributed communication devices to every known human population center. Rebel forces are in position across 17 sectors. And our own capabilities? The Phoenix is ready for extended combat operations. I have completed modifications that will allow us to engage multiple enemy fleets simultaneously while maintaining dimensional stability. Captain Kim nodded, then activated the ship's general communication system. His voice would reach every human resistance cell and allied fleet across the galaxy. People of Earth, he began, descendants of the species that once made the stars themselves tremble with our passage. For 200 years, you have lived as slaves. You have been told you are weak, primitive, worthless. Today, we prove them wrong. Across the galaxy, humans stopped what they were doing to listen. In slave quarters and mining stations, in hidden rebel bases and alien alliance command centers, people gathered around communication devices to hear the words they had dreamed of for centuries. The Vorthak believe they can end us with a final act of genocide. They think that by killing our bodies, they can kill our spirit. They are about to learn the truth that every enemy of humanity has discovered too late. The captain's voice grew harder, carrying the accumulated rage of 2 centuries of oppression. We are not cattle to be slaughtered. We are not slaves to be discarded. We are human beings, and we have had enough. Today, we remind the galaxy why our ancestors conquered the stars. Today, we show them what happens when you back a human into a corner and threaten everything they love. He paused, letting his words sink in across the vast distances of space. Citizens of Earth, children of humanity, rise up. Take back what was stolen from you. Fight for your freedom. Fight for your families. Fight for the future of our species. The age of human slavery ends today. The transmission ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy like a shock wave. On 1,000 worlds, humans who had lived their entire lives in chains suddenly stood tall. Mining tools became weapons. Work songs became battle cries. Slaves became soldiers. The Vorthak had made a fatal mistake. They had threatened to destroy humanity completely. Now they would. Learn why that was impossible. The war began with silence. Across the galaxy, at precisely Oro 800 Universal Standard Time, every human slave simply stopped working. In mines and factories, on construction sites and farming worlds, 50 million humans set down their tools and stood up straight for the first time in their lives. The Vorthak overseers were confused at first. Then the explosions started. On Mining Station 7, Jin Woo Choi activated the charges his team had placed throughout the facility's power systems. The station's lights flickered and died as primary power failed. In the darkness, humans who had been slaves moments before became warriors. "For Earth!" Jin Woo shouted, leading a charge against the Vorthak guard post with modified mining equipment in his hands. Similar battles erupted simultaneously on 3,000 worlds. The rebellion had been planned in secret for months, but it moved with the precision of a military operation. Every human knew their target. Every team had their objectives. The Vorthak had expected this. What they hadn't expected was the coordination and the weapons. High above Mining Station 7, Captain Sung-Ho Lee piloted one of the new fighters, produced by the Crimson Phoenix's manufacturing systems. The small ship moved through space like liquid lightning, its quantum engines allowing impossible maneuvers. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Lead," he announced over the communication system. "Vorthak fleet approaching Mining Station 7. 12 heavy cruisers and escort vessels." "Copy that, Lead," came the reply from Phoenix 2, piloted by Commander Na Young Choi. "These are human weapons now. Let's show them how we use them." The human fighters struck the Vorthak fleet like arrows of light. Their quantum weapons punched through enemy shields as if they didn't exist, while their space-folding engines made them impossible to track or target effectively. But the Vorthak had weapons too, and they used them without mercy. "Phoenix 7 is down," called out one of the pilots as a Vorthak beam weapon found its mark. "They got Hyunwoo." "Stay focused," Captain Lee ordered, though his own heart was breaking. "Make his sacrifice count." The space battle raged above, while the ground battle continued below. Jin Woo and his sister Hye Jin fought their way through the mining station's corridors, leading other humans in a desperate bid to reach the communication center. "We need to signal the Phoenix that we're in control," Hye Jin said, firing a converted plasma cutter at a Vorthak guard. "Let them know it's safe to begin evacuation." They burst into the communication center to find Miran Jian already at the controls, her fingers flying over systems she had secretly studied for years. "I'm sending the all-clear signal now," she reported. "The Phoenix should receive it in... There! They're responding!" Through the station's windows, they could see the massive human warship materializing from folded space. The Crimson Phoenix appeared like a dark angel, its quantum weapons reaching out to destroy the remaining Vorthak vessels with surgical precision. "Evacuation ships are launching," Miran announced. "We're going home." But the war was far from over. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out with varying degrees of success. Some human populations managed to overthrow their captors completely, others fought desperate holding actions while waiting for rescue, and some... Phoenix Command. "This is Admiral Young Miseo," came the desperate transmission from the Keltharian fleet. "The Vorthak have deployed their reality weapon at Kepler Station. The entire system is... it's gone. 10 billion humans were there." In the command center of the Crimson Phoenix, Captain Han Sol Kim felt the weight of those deaths like a physical blow. 10 billion people erased from existence by a weapon that literally deleted matter from reality. "Area, analysis of the reality weapon," he ordered. "The device creates a localized collapse of quantum fields," Arya replied, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. Everything within the affected area simply ceases to exist. No explosion, no debris, just nothing. Can we defend against it? Possibly. Our dimensional shields might be able to deflect the effect. But, Captain, if the Vorthak deploy multiple reality weapons simultaneously... She didn't need to finish. Even the Crimson Phoenix couldn't be everywhere at once. "Sir," reported communications. "Officer Inho Beck, we're receiving tactical updates from rebel forces across the galaxy. The picture is mixed. The main screen filled with status reports from hundreds of battle zones. Green markers showed successful human uprisings. Yellow markers indicated ongoing battles. Red markers showed worlds where the Vorthak had deployed reality weapons. There were too many red markers. They're not just fighting us," Captain Kim realized. "They're implementing their genocide plan regardless of military necessity. They'd rather rule over empty space than risk human freedom." "Captain," Arya interrupted, "I'm detecting a massive fleet movement in the Vorthak home system. Their entire reserve fleet is mobilizing, over 50,000 ships." "Destination?" "Earth." The bridge fell silent. Earth, humanity's birth world, still held over 5 million human slaves. If the Vorthak reached it with their full fleet... "How long do we have?" Captain Kim asked. "At their current speed, 48 hours, Arya replied. Captain Kim looked around, his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had been fighting for months, rescuing millions of their people and dealing devastating blows to the Vorthak Empire. But now came the moment of truth. "Arya, send a message to all rebel forces and allied fleets. Tell them to converge on Earth. We're going to make our stand at home." "Sir, the tactical situation is not favorable," Arya pointed out. "Even with all our allies, we'll be outnumbered 50-1. "Then we'll have to be 50 times better," Captain Kim replied grimly. "Signal all human resistance cells on Earth. Tell them to prepare for siege, and Arya..." "Yes, Captain. Begin charging the Phoenix's ultimate weapon. If we're going to die, defending Earth, let's make sure we take as many of them with us as possible." Meanwhile, on Earth itself, the rebellion had taken a different form. Without the element of surprise available to humans on other worlds, Earth's slaves had been forced to wage a guerrilla campaign from the planet's vast mining tunnels and industrial complexes. Commander Tae-min Yoon led the largest resistance, Cell, operating from the ruins of what had once been Seoul. His forces had captured several Vorthak weapons depots and were using the enemy's own equipment against them. "Status report," he ordered, as his lieutenants gathered in their underground command post. "Western sector is under our control," reported one officer. "We've destroyed 3 Vorthak ground bases and captured their communication equipment." "Eastern sector is still contested," added another. "The Vorthak are using reality weapons against civilian areas. They're not trying to preserve infrastructure anymore. They just want us dead." Commander Yoon studied the tactical displays showing the battle for Earth. Bright flashes marked the locations where reality weapons had erased entire city blocks from existence. The Vorthak were literally deleting sections of humanity's homeworld rather than risk losing control. "Any word from the Phoenix?" he asked. "They're coming," his communications officer replied. "But, sir, the Vorthak home fleet is coming too. This is going to be the biggest space battle in galactic history." Commander Yoon nodded grimly. His ancestor, Admiral Yoon-ho Park, had died defending Earth 2 centuries ago. Now it seemed the family tradition would continue. "Then we'll give our people in space something worth fighting for," he said. "Signal all resistance cells. When the battle begins, we launch simultaneous attacks on every Vorthak position on the planet. They want to destroy Earth? They'll have to fight for every inch." In space above Earth, long-range sensors detected the approaching fleets. The Vorthak armada was massive beyond comprehension. Thousands of capital ships, millions of fighters, weapons that could crack planets. But humanity's fleet was gathering too. The Crimson Phoenix led a coalition of human rebels and alien allies. Ships powered by quantum technology and crewed by beings who had nothing left to lose. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. As the two fleets closed on each other, Captain Kim opened a final communication. "To all human forces, children of Earth," he said, "we have come home. Today we fight not just for our freedom, but for our right to exist. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate the human spirit." The Crimson Phoenix's weapons began to charge, reality itself bending around the great ships. Quantum cannons. "Today," Captain Kim concluded, "we either save our species or we die trying, for Earth, for humanity, for freedom." The war's final battle was about to begin. The battle for Earth began when the Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts. 50,000 warships filled the space around humanity's homeworld, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could level continents. Captain Hansol Kim stood on the bridge of the Crimson Phoenix, watching the enemy fleet deploy in perfect formation. They had come to finish what they started 2 centuries ago, the complete extermination of the human species. "Enemy fleet strength confirmed," Area reported. 53,000 capital ships, 2 million fighters, 12 reality weapons. "Our forces?" Captain Kim asked. "Human rebel fleet, 800 ships. Allied alien forces, 2,000 ships. Total effective strength, less than 3,000 vessels." The odds were impossible. Even with quantum weapons and dimensional shields, humanity faced annihilation. But Captain Kim had not spent 2 centuries in exile just to surrender at the moment of truth. "Aria, begin temporal calculations for the Paradox Resolution Protocol." "Captain, that protocol is untested. The quantum destabilization could destroy us as easily as the enemy." "Better to die trying than to watch our people be exterminated," Captain Kim replied. "How long do you need?" "Minimum 12 hours to complete the calculations safely." "But sir, the battle will be decided long before then." Captain Kim looked out at the approaching Vorthak armada. "Then we hold for 12 hours. All ships, this is Phoenix Command. Today we make our stand. For Earth, for humanity, for freedom." The first salvo came from the Vorthak reality weapons. 12 beams of pure dissolution reached across space toward the human fleet. Where they touched, ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but erased from the universe itself. Quantum. "Shields at maximum," Area announced as one of the beams struck the Crimson Phoenix. The ship shuddered as its dimensional barriers absorbed the reality-destroying energy and scattered it across multiple parallel universes. "We're holding," reported Chief Engineer Dong Hyun Lim. "But sir, the shields are already down to 80%. We can't take many more hits like that." The human fleet struck back with quantum weapons that punched through Vorthak's shields like they were paper. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries came apart under focused beams of reorganized matter. But for every Vorthak vessel destroyed, 10 more took its place. On Earth's surface, Commander Taemin Yoon watched the battle through the transparent dome of an underground command bunker. Explosions lit up the sky as ships died in the vacuum. Above, while on the ground, human resistance fighters battled Vorthak forces in the ruins of their former cities. "Western Front is holding," reported one of his officers. "But the Vorthak are using reality weapons on civilian areas. Entire districts are just gone." Keep fighting, Commander Yoon ordered. Every minute we hold out gives the Phoenix more time to complete whatever they're planning. Above them, the space battle raged with unprecedented ferocity. The Crimson Phoenix moved through the enemy fleet like a dark angel of death, its quantum weapons reaching out to destroy everything in their path. But the Vorthak numbers were overwhelming. "Phoenix Squadron is taking heavy losses," reported Captain Sung Ho Lee over the tactical network. "We've lost half our fighters." "Fall back to defensive formation," Captain Kim ordered. "Protect the Phoenix at all costs." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. The Vorthak fleet was closing in from all sides, their reality weapons charging for another salvo that would erase what remained of humanity's fleet. Area. Status on the temporal calculations? 8 hours remaining, Captain. But our shields won't last another hour under this assault. Captain Kim closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his species' fate on his shoulders. 2 centuries ago, he had failed to save Earth. Now, it seemed, he would fail again. Then inspiration struck. "Arya, what if we don't wait for the calculations to complete? What if we execute the protocol now and let you finish the math while we're inside the temporal field?" "Captain, that could tear us apart, or trap us in a time loop, or erase us from history entirely. But it might work. There is a chance, a very small chance." Captain Kim looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had followed him across centuries and through impossible battles. They deserved better than watching their people die while they waited for perfect calculations. "Do it," he ordered. "Execute Temporal Paradox Resolution Protocol." "Sir," Arya said quietly, "this will require me to merge my consciousness with yours to manually stabilize the quantum field. The process will what? Will likely destroy both of us, but it might save everyone else." Captain Kim smiled sadly. "Then it's a fair trade. Begin the merge." The universe exploded into impossible colors as Arya's artificial consciousness flowed into Captain Kim's human mind. He felt his awareness expand beyond anything biological minds were meant to experience, touching the fundamental forces that held reality together. Through their merged consciousness, they reached out to grasp the quantum threads that connected past, present, and future. The battle around them slowed to a crawl as they began to manipulate time itself. "What are they doing?" screamed Emperor Mordak from his flagship as the Crimson Phoenix began to glow with energies that hurt to look at directly. "Unknown, my lord," replied Dr. Jektul, studying readings that made no sense. "They appear to be rewriting the quantum structure of local space-time." The merged consciousness of Captain Kim and Arya reached deeper into the temporal matrix, searching for the moment when history could be changed. They found it. The instant when the Vorthak first discovered Earth's location, 400 years in the past. "We can send them back," the merged voice whispered through the Phoenix's communication system. "Send the entire Vorthak fleet back to before they found us. But we need a conduit, something to carry the temporal energy." The reality weapons, Dr. So-Young Lee realized from her science station. "If we can reverse their quantum field." "Already on it," the merged consciousness replied. The Phoenix's ultimate weapon, a quantum cannon capable of restructuring matter at the subatomic level, turned toward the nearest Vorthak reality weapon. When the beam struck, it didn't destroy the enemy weapon. It inverted it. Instead of erasing matter from existence, the device began pulling matter back from the void. The temporal paradox grew stronger, reality itself beginning to unravel and reweave. All ships, maximum power to temporal stabilizers, the merged consciousness commanded through the communication network. We're rewriting history. The effect spread outward from the Phoenix like ripples in a cosmic pond. Vorthak's ships began to flicker in and out of existence as the timeline shifted around them. Some vessels aged centuries in seconds, others reverted to their component materials. A few simply vanished as the past changed to exclude their creation. Emperor Mordak felt his own body beginning to fade as the temporal wave reached his flagship. "What have they done?" he screamed. "They've won," Dr. Jektul replied, with something approaching admiration in his voice. "They've changed history itself to prevent this war from ever happening." The last thing the Emperor saw was the crimson Phoenix hanging in space like a dark star, its hull blazing with the light of unraveling time. Then the temporal wave swept over his fleet, carrying them all back to a past where Earth remained hidden and humanity unknown. When the light faded, Earth hung peacefully in space, its blue atmosphere unmarred by the scars of conquest. The Vorthak fleet was gone, scattered across time to an era when they had never heard of humanity. But the Phoenix remained, existing outside normal time as a guardian between dimensions. The merged consciousness that had once been Captain Hansol Kim and Arya watched over Earth from their quantum sanctuary, forever protecting humanity from threats that might emerge from the dark. On the planet below, a different history began to unfold. Humanity developed peacefully, their natural curiosity and ingenuity leading them to the stars through exploration rather than desperation. When they encountered other species, it was as equals seeking friendship rather than escaped slaves seeking revenge. The Keltharians welcomed humanity into their republic of art and philosophy. The Zephyrians shared their collective wisdom with human scientists. Species that had once been enemies in a timeline that no longer existed became allies in building a better galaxy. But some humans remembered fragments of the erased timeline, dreams of slavery and war, visions of a great ship that had saved them from darkness. These memories became legends, stories told around campfires about the Phoenix that watched over Earth from beyond the veil of time. In a research facility on Earth's moon, Dr. Yoonji Kim studied quantum anomalies in space around the planet. She was the descendant of scientists who had once built the greatest weapons in galactic history. But in this timeline, her family's genius was turned toward peaceful exploration. "There's something out there," she told her colleague, Dr. Won-Sik Kong, as they reviewed their latest sensor data. "A quantum signature that doesn't match anything in our databases. It's like a ship that exists and doesn't exist at the same time." "Guardian angel," Dr. Kang joked. "Maybe it's the legendary Phoenix the old stories talk about." Dr. Kim didn't laugh. In her dreams, she sometimes saw flashes of a dark ship with weapons that could reshape reality. She saw a captain who had sacrificed everything to save his people and Anne,